The discovery, the silent behemoth, the void between stars, held many secrets, but none more terrifying than the ship that drifted in the empty darkness of Sector 7 for 5,000 years. The massive vessel had remained motionless, a black shadow, against the cosmic background that stretched nearly 30 kilometers from bow to stern. The aliens of the Galactic Coalition had given it many names over the centuries, but most simply called it Nemesis Prime, the deadliest warship ever conceived. Admiral Kexther of the Zephyrian fleet stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the ancient behemoth through reinforced viewing ports. His crystalline blue skin shimmered with nervous energy as he studied the ship that had haunted his species' nightmares for generations. The vessel's hull was smooth and seamless, made of some unknown material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. No windows, no visible weapons, no signs of life, just an ominous presence that seemed to watch back. 5,000 years, muttered Commander Veltara, her insect-like features clicking with agitation. 5,000 years since the Great War ended, and still that cursed thing refuses to respond to anyone. The Great War had nearly destroyed 3 galaxies. According to the old records, Nemesis Prime had appeared at the height of the conflict, a single ship that had ended battles with its mere presence. Entire fleets had surrendered rather than face it in combat. When it fired its weapons, planets were scorched clean of life in minutes. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the ship had gone silent. It drifted into the void, ignoring all attempts at communication, all efforts to board it, all weapons fired against its impenetrable hull. The Council grows impatient, Kexler said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. They want results. The other species are starting to panic again. Some are calling for another attempt to destroy it. Veltara's mandibles clicked dismissively. The hegemony tried that 2 centuries ago. They threw everything they had at it. Antimatter torpedoes, quantum disruptors, even a controlled singularity. The ship didn't even slow down. The weapons just disappeared. The failed attempts over the millennia. Every major civilization had tried to crack the secrets of Nemesis Prime. The Zephyrians, masters of crystalline technology, had attempted to interface with the ship using their most advanced quantum computers. Their efforts had resulted in complete system failures, as if the ship actively rejected their technology. The Crystalline Collective, a hive mind spanning 12 star systems, had focused their combined consciousness on the vessel for decades, only to encounter an impenetrable mental void. The war fleets of 3 different galactic empires had fired upon the ship with weapons capable of cracking moons. Every shot had simply vanished upon contact with the hull, absorbed without a trace. Boarding parties had managed to cut through the outer armor in a few places, only to find their tools failing. Once they penetrated more than a few inches, it was as if the ship healed itself, sealing any breach as quickly as it was made. Scientists had studied it from every angle, using sensors that could detect subatomic particles from light years away. They learned that the ship was definitely artificial, definitely ancient, and definitely still powered by something that defied their understanding of physics. Energy readings suggested the vessel could move, could fight, could potentially level entire worlds if it chose to, but it never did. It just drifted, silent and watchful. The most disturbing discovery had come from the archaeologists. Deep in the ship's structure, they had detected what appeared to be vast chambers filled with some kind of organic material. Life signs were impossible to determine through the ship's shielding, but the implications were clear. Something was alive. Inside that ship, something that had been waiting for 5,000 years. What about the new species? Beltara asked, breaking the silence. The ones from the outer rim, the humans. Kextha's expression darkened. The humans were a recent addition to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 3 centuries ago. They were considered primitive by most standards, lacking the advanced technology or mental capabilities of the established civilizations. Most species barely acknowledged their existence. The Council would never approve sending humans, he replied. They're too young, too unpredictable. What could they possibly accomplish that we haven't tried? The human element Captain Marcus Chen stood in the briefing room aboard the human vessel Perseverance, studying the holographic display of Nemesis Prime with intense concentration. At 42 years old, he was considered young by Galactic standards, with short black hair starting to show grey at the temples and dark eyes that reflected a sharp intelligence. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate ceremonial dress of other species, just a blue jumpsuit with mission, patches and rank insignia. So let me understand this, Marcus said, turning to face the assembled alien delegation. For 5,000 years, every major civilization in 3 galaxies has tried to crack this thing. The most advanced minds, the most powerful weapons, the most sophisticated technology, all failures. And now you want to send in the humans. Ambassador Thurl of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps shifted uncomfortably. The decision to approach humanity had not been popular among the coalition leadership. Captain Chen, we are exploring all options. Your species has a reputation for unconventional approaches to problems. Marcus couldn't help but smile. Unconventional was probably the most polite way the aliens had ever described human problem-solving methods. Where other species relied on advanced technology or specialized abilities, humans had a tendency to find solutions through intuition, creativity, and sheer stubbornness. It had served them well in their rapid expansion across the local stellar neighborhood, even if it made the more established civilizations nervous. What makes you think we can succeed where you failed? Asked Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the mission's chief scientist. She was a brilliant woman in her 30s, with red hair tied back in a practical ponytail and eyes that missed nothing. Frankly, we don't, Admiral Kexter admitted. But we've exhausted every other possibility. If the humans fail, we'll at least know we tried everything before we're forced to. More drastic measures. Marcus exchanged glances with his team. Lieutenant Jake Torres, their security chief, raised an eyebrow. More drastic measures. Complete evacuation of this sector, Thurl explained, followed by the deployment of a prototype weapon designed to destabilize local space-time. It would destroy the ship, but it would also make this entire region of space uninhabitable for 10,000 years. The weight of that statement settled over the room. Marcus looked back at the hologram of the ancient ship, studying its smooth, predatory lines. Something about it seemed familiar, though he couldn't place why. How long do we have? The council votes in 30 days, Kexter replied. If you're going to try, it has to be soon. First contact with the ship Asterisk. 3 days later, Marcus and his small team approached Nemesis Prime in a modified shuttle. The closer they got, the more imposing the ancient vessel became. Up close, they could see that the hull wasn't completely smooth. There were subtle patterns etched into the surface, designs that almost looked like circuitry but followed no technological principles they recognized. Scans are still showing that weird interference, reported Torres from the pilot's seat. It's like the ship is actively jamming our sensors. Dr. Mitchell checked her instruments. I'm getting some unusual readings from the hull composition. This material, it's not quite metal, not quite organic. It's something else entirely. As they drew closer, a section of the ship's hull suddenly dilated like an iris, revealing a docking bay that was perfectly sized for their shuttle. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the interior in a soft blue glow. "Well, that's not ominous at all," Torres muttered. But he guided the shuttle inside. The docking bay sealed itself behind them with disturbing efficiency. The shuttle's sensors detected a breathable atmosphere being pumped into the chamber, perfectly adjusted for human physiology. When they disembarked, they found themselves in a corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions. The walls were covered in the same strange patterns they'd seen on the hull, but here they pulsed with faint light. "It knows we're human," Dr. Mitchell whispered, checking her tricorder. "The atmosphere, the lighting, even the gravity, it's all set for human comfort levels." They followed the corridor, their footsteps echoing strangely in the alien architecture. Doors opened for them as they approached and closed behind them as they passed. It was as if the ship was guiding them toward a specific destination. The deeper they went, the more Marcus felt that strange sense of familiarity. The designs on the walls, the proportions of the corridors, even the way the lighting cast shadows, something about all of it felt almost like home. After what felt like hours of walking, they emerged into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The room was circular, with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time view of the stars outside. In the center of the chamber stood a single console, its surface covered with symbols that seemed to shift and flow like living things. "This has to be the command center," Marcus said, his voice hushed with awe. The console was clearly designed for someone roughly human-sized, with controls positioned where human hands would naturally fall. The symbols on its surface were unlike anything in the known galactic databases, yet they seemed almost readable, as if the meaning was just beyond conscious understanding. Dr. Mitchell was taking readings as fast as her equipment could process. "Marcus, you need to see this. The energy patterns coming from that console, they're not random. They're responding to our presence, specifically to yours." Marcus stepped closer to the console, and the symbols began to glow brighter. The chamber itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Everything that had happened, the ship accepting them, guiding them here, preparing the atmosphere, it all pointed to one inevitable conclusion. The ship was waiting for him to touch. That console, the awakening, the touch that changed everything. Marcus stood before the ancient console, his hand hovering just inches above its surface. The symbols beneath seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat, growing brighter as he drew closer. Around him, his team watched with a mixture of anticipation and fear. "Marcus, maybe we should run more tests first," Dr. Mitchell suggested, though her scientific curiosity was clearly warring with caution. "We don't know what might happen if you actually touch it. We've been testing and analyzing for 5,000 years. Marcus replied softly. "Sometimes you just have to take the leap." He pressed his palm against the console's surface. The reaction was instantaneous and overwhelming. Light exploded outward from the point of contact, racing along every surface in the chamber. The symbols on the walls blazed to life, and Marcus felt a surge of information flooding directly into his mind. Not painful, but intense, like trying to drink from a fire hose. The ship shuddered around them, not with damage, but with awakening. Deep in its core, systems that had slept for millennia came online. Lights flickered on throughout the vessel's vast bulk. The gentle hum of artificial gravity generators filled the air, and the stars visible through the dome shifted as the ship began to move under its own power for the first time in eons. But the most shocking change was in Marcus himself. As the information flow stabilized, he found that he could understand the symbols on the console. More than understand, they were familiar, like a half-remembered language from childhood. His hands moved across the controls with growing confidence, accessing systems and displays that should have been completely alien to him. "Marcus," Dr. Mitchell called out, but her voice seemed to come from very far away. "Your vital signs are spiking. What's happening?" He turned to look at her, and she gasped. His eyes were glowing with the same soft light as the console, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. "I remember," he said simply. The ship's secret, the central display, activated, showing a map of the galaxy. But this wasn't the galaxy as the current civilizations knew it. This was older, showing star systems and trade routes that had been forgotten for millennia. At the center of it all was a spiral of worlds connected by lines of light, the heart of what had once been a vast interstellar empire. "The Terran hegemony," Marcus said, reading information that flowed directly from the ship's memory banks into his consciousness. "Humanity's first galactic empire." His team stared in shock as the display shifted, showing images of humans in advanced spacecraft, establishing colonies on distant worlds, building massive space stations around alien suns. This wasn't the primitive species that had only recently achieved FTL travel. This was a civilization that had ruled half the galaxy. "That's impossible," Torres breathed. "Humans have only been in space for 3 centuries. Not this branch of humanity," Marcus replied, his consciousness now flowing through the ship's vast databases. "We were the descendants of the survivors. When the hegemony fell, most of our worlds were lost. The few remaining colonies regressed to primitive levels, forgot their history, forgot their technology. Earth was one of those lost colonies." The display showed the final days of the Terran hegemony, a war against something the records called only the Devourers, entities from outside the galaxy that consumed entire star systems. The human empire had fought valiantly, but they were losing. In desperation, they had created Nemesis Prime and ships like it as a last resort. "We weren't trying to conquer the galaxy," Marcus continued, his voice heavy with the weight of ancient memories. "We were trying to save it." The ship's AI spoke for the first time, its voice a perfect blend of human warmth and machine precision. "Welcome home, Marcus Chen. Genetic analysis confirms you are a descendant of Emperor David Chen, final ruler of the Terran hegemony. Authorization. Codes accepted. Nemesis Prime is once again under human command." Dr. Mitchell's scientific mind was reeling. The ship's been waiting for a human descendant all this time. "Not just any descendant," the AI explained. "The ship's command systems are genetically locked to the Imperial bloodline. Only someone carrying the proper genetic markers can activate full control. Lesser humans can access basic functions, but complete integration requires the correct DNA sequence." Marcus felt the truth of it in his bones. The ship wasn't just responding to him, it was bonding with him, recognizing him as family. Through their connection, he could feel the vast network of systems throughout the vessel, the incredible weapons that could crack planets, the defensive shields that could absorb any attack, the faster-than-light engines that could cross the galaxy in days. But he could also feel the ship's purpose, its core programming that went deeper than any weapon system. Nemesis Prime hadn't been built to destroy, it had been built to protect. The galaxy reacts. News of Nemesis Prime's awakening spread through the galactic community like wildfire. Within hours, every major civilization had detected the ship's activation. Energy readings showed that the ancient vessel was now operating at full capacity, its power output dwarfing entire star systems. Panic gripped many worlds. The Zephyrian fleet went to full alert status. The Crystalline Collective began evacuating. Their border worlds, 3 different military alliances started mobilizing their fleets, each convinced that the humans were about to unleash the galaxy's deadliest weapon upon them. In the Coalition Council chambers, emergency sessions were called as representatives from dozens of species argued over how to respond to this unprecedented threat. The humans have activated a weapon of unimaginable power, roared General Vexkar of the Hegemony War Fleet. We must act before they can use it against us. We don't know their intentions, countered Ambassador Thyril. Captain Chen seemed reasonable. Perhaps we should attempt communication first. Communication? General Vexkar's reptilian features twisted with contempt. That ship destroyed 12 worlds in the Great War. Now it's in the hands of a species we barely understand. We cannot take that risk. Similar debates raged across the galaxy. Some species called for immediate military action, others for diplomatic solutions. Fear and uncertainty drove many to make hasty decisions. Several minor civilizations began evacuating their homeworlds, while others started building defensive alliances. Meanwhile, aboard Nemesis Prime, Marcus was learning the full extent of the ship's capabilities. The vessel was far more than just a weapon. It was a mobile command center, a manufacturing facility, a research station, and a siege ship all rolled into one. Its databases contained the accumulated knowledge of the entire Terran hegemony, including technologies that surpassed anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. Marcus, Dr. Mitchell said urgently, we're receiving thousands of communications from across the galaxy. Some are demands for surrender, others are offers of alliance, but most of them are just terrified messages begging us not to attack them. Through his connection to the ship, Marcus could sense the fear rippling across space. Entire civilizations were paralyzed with terror at the thought of facing the legendary Nemesis Prime in combat. It was a sobering reminder of the power he now controlled and the responsibility that came with it. A new dawn. Marcus stood once again in the command chamber. But now the symbols on the console were as familiar as his own heartbeat. Through his bond with the ship, he could feel the pulse of the galaxy around them, the fear, the hope, the uncertainty of billions of beings across thousands of worlds. What are you going to do? Torres asked quietly. It was the question that would shape the future of galactic civilization. Marcus had the power to avenge humanity's forgotten empire, to reclaim the worlds that had once been human, to rule the galaxy through fear as others assumed he would. The ship's weapons were charged, its shields were at full power, and no force in the known galaxy could stand against it. But that wasn't what Nemesis Prime had been built for. Through the ancient memories stored in the ship's core, Marcus understood the true vision of the Terran hegemony. They hadn't wanted to conquer the galaxy, they had wanted to protect it, to nurture it, to help all sentient species reach their full potential. We're going to do what we were always meant to do, Marcus said finally. We're going to protect the galaxy. He activated the ship's communication systems, broadcasting on all frequencies across 3 galaxies. His message was simple, but carried the weight of ancient authority. This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Terran vessel Nemesis Prime, speaking. For humanity and the reborn Terran hegemony, we know that our awakening has caused fear across the galaxy. We understand that our reputation precedes us, but we are not your enemies. 5,000 years ago, Our ancestors fought to protect this galaxy from an invasion that would have consumed all life. We failed to save our own empire, but we succeeded in driving back the devourers. Now we offer our protection once again, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The Terran hegemony is reborn, but we will not repeat the mistakes of the past. We extend our hand in friendship to all species, our protection to all who need it, and our knowledge to all who would learn. The galaxy faces new challenges: resource depletion, climate collapse, territorial conflicts. Together, we can solve these problems. Together, we can build something better than what came before. The response wasn't immediate, but it was profound. Across the galaxy, the panic began to subside as Marcus's words were analyzed and debated. Here was not the conquering tyrant they had feared, but someone offering partnership and protection. Not all civilizations were convinced trust would have to be earned over time, but it was a beginning. In the weeks that followed, Nemesis Prime became a symbol of hope rather than terror. The ship's advanced manufacturing capabilities were used to provide aid to worlds suffering from resource shortages. Its medical databases helped cure plagues that had ravaged entire star systems. Its defensive systems protected trade routes from pirates and hostile entities. Marcus established the new Terran embassy not on a conquered world, but in the heart of coalition space, demonstrating humanity's commitment to cooperation rather than domination. The ancient ship that had once been the galaxy's most feared weapon became its most trusted protector. Standing on the observation deck, watching the stars stream by as Nemesis Prime traveled to another world in need of help, Marcus reflected on the incredible journey that had brought him here. He had started as an explorer from a species barely acknowledged by the galactic community. Now he was the guardian of ancient knowledge, the protector of civilizations, and the bridge between humanity's forgotten past and its bright future. The galaxy's deadliest ship had indeed stayed silent for 5,000 years. But when a human finally touched its console, it hadn't awakened as a weapon of destruction. It had awakened as humanity's gift to the stars, a promise that no species would face extinction alone, and that the best of what humanity had been would help guide what the galaxy could become. In the end, the touch that changed everything wasn't about power or conquest. It was about remembering who humanity truly was, and choosing to be better than the fears others had of them. The deadliest ship in the galaxy had become its greatest. Hope and Captain Marcus Chen, descendant of emperors, had chosen to be not a ruler, but a guardian of the infinite possibilities that lay among the stars. Asterisk.